Hey everyone, welcome to Pilot to Co-Pilot, a leadership podcast with me, Antonio Neves, and Jason Lindstrom. Today we're talking about something leaders say they value but often don't do, taking time off. Jason just took 100 hours of straight PTO for the first time in 9 years and went on a safari and other adventures in South Africa and Botswana. And in 2025, I took my family abroad for a month on 2 separate occasions. Now, we get it. Most people can't disappear for weeks. So this conversation is about both sides, the big trips and the small getaways, and how leaders can actually make time for themselves without blowing up their team, their calendar, or their life. So Jason, let's get straight into it. In your experience, why do leaders avoid taking time off even while they're simultaneously telling their teams to take time off?
Yeah, thanks, Antonio. I find this topic it is crazy because I do promote that with my team, like take time off. We offer very good PTO at the credit union. And I think for me, I look at it as I'm the ultimate responsibility at my shop, at the credit union. And I need to be there for my team. And the thing that I think about at times is like, if I'm away and there's a robbery or something that happens, I'm not there physically to support them, to support my team members. I think about those kind of things because I started my career at a credit union and I was robbed, and I knew like how that feels when you're a teller and something like that happens to you. And so that's that empathy side of me that I just feel like I'm totally out of the loop. If I'm gone for a day at a conference, it's like, even though I can stay on top of email, I get back and then I hear like, oh yeah, well, so-and-so did this, or we did that, or, this came up and I wasn't there for it. This trip that I took was absolutely fantastic. I would recommend it to anyone. We went to South Africa, went to Zimbabwe and Botswana, and just a phenomenal trip, a phenomenal getaway. But South Africa and Africa for us is 7 hours ahead. So it's like I was way out of touch, and it took me a while to get back in the swing of things because I missed the first of the year. I left on December 29th and came back on the 15th or 16th of January. So I missed New Year's here. I missed the changeover from the end of 2025 to 2006, the start of the year, and getting everybody back in after the holidays. And, that as a leader, that just it challenges you.
It challenged you. And also, it sounds like things didn't break either. So I'm
Yeah.
sure for you as well, it's reassuring, one, for your team to know that you have full trust in them. Of course, I know the type of CEO leader that you are, even though you're 7 hours ahead on the other side of the planet, you're available. You're going to be checking emails. You'll be checking text messages and all those kind of things. But I get it from that perspective of wanting to be available. And it's interesting for me as a person that doesn't have a standard 9 to 5, and each month can look a little bit different. Sometimes annually things can look a little bit different from a dollars and cents perspective. I've been hesitant at times, Jason, to take long extended trips because I don't want to miss out, frankly, on dollars and cents, miss out on that engagement, that nice payday. Nowadays I'm able to do that, but early on for sure, I was like, no, I got to work because what I'm doing, there's no guaranteed paycheck that shows up every 2 weeks, the same number, all these types of things. So I have to work. So I always felt a little bit guilty for taking time off when it was exactly the thing that I needed. I also now I think back to my TV days long before I was doing the speaking work. And TV is interesting, especially if you're on camera. It's so competitive. If you're on camera, you don't want to take a day off because the day you take off, your fill-in comes in and takes your job. Makes me think about when Drew Bledsoe for the Patriots got injured many years ago, and there's this guy named Tom Brady who was waiting to replace him, and Drew Bledsoe never became the starting quarterback again. Tell me this. I'm curious, a trip like that, I mean, what was different about this paid time off for you, say compared to any other time you took off before?
I think it was just purely the distance away. We had traveled to other places in the world and gone to the Caribbean a few times and that kind of thing, but we were in the same time zone, and it's only a few hours away from Maine here to get to Jamaica or Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic and, all these nice tropical places. But to go to the tip of Africa, at the bottom of the world, just across from Antarctica, where, the Atlantic Ocean meets the Indian Ocean, like you look at a map and that's way down there. And I think, getting on a plane for 15 hours out of Atlanta, I had to fly to Atlanta first. And, me, I'm a Delta Miles person like you are. And so we flew out of Atlanta direct to Cape Town. And that 15-hour flight really puts it into perspective just how far away I was. So to my point earlier, if something were to happen at the credit union, that's why, when it's local, and I say local, like the Caribbean, that's still far, but at least I'm in the same time zone. So I can, I could get on a call, I could FaceTime, whatever I needed to do, get on Teams. But 7-hour time difference, that far away, I think it was 8,500 miles from Atlanta. That's far. It's far. And so, I think previously we've gone, I think the furthest we had gone, Shannon and I, my wife, has been to Greece, and I think that was maybe 5-hour time difference. But that just didn't feel as far away as where we were. And so I think, it took me 9 years, not because I didn't trust the team, but I had to get to a comfort level with myself and my own feelings on, running an organization of our size. And when I started, we were about 50 or so employees, and we're at 130 now. So 9 years, we've more than doubled employees. And I really look at my role as helping to take care of all of them. So if I'm gone for 8,500 miles, I've got 130 people in the back of my head that I'm thinking about. Right. And so that's why it took so long to get to that break.
Yeah, and I'm curious for you. My family, we spent almost 2 whole months away in 2025, and I did learn that hey, if you put it on the calendar, it will happen. Obviously, you and Shannon didn't plan that trip overnight. If you put it on the calendar, it will happen. But I'm curious if this happens for you. We are primarily in Western Europe and in the UK, in Portugal, and being based in Los Angeles, that's 9-hour time difference. I'll tell you one cool thing about it. There was a side of me that, yes, felt a little bit of angst because of the time zone difference. And sure, I had to do some of my coaching sessions and different things a little bit later in the day in Portugal and in the UK. It was fine. I got it done. But I found something interesting, and I'm curious if you found this as well, is that, as you know, when it comes to leadership, business building, a lot of executives don't get a lot of time that they need for that big picture thinking, strategy, relationship building, thinking about the upcoming year or years ahead, because we're so busy in what's coming in the inbox and the day-to-day type of stuff. I'll say what's interesting, having that 8 to 9 hour time gap, was there was a good amount of time during peak hours of my day, Jason, that there wasn't a lot of information coming into me. So I had a lot of blank space, if you will, to think about things and do things that I normally don't do in the midst of a standard day to day here in the States, because people are calling, there are emails coming in, there's travel, there's engagement. But I had this blank chalkboard, if you will, this blank whiteboard to operate on that allowed me to think. So I'm curious for you, while you were away, of course, you were being active and taking part in activities. But was there an opportunity for you to think and process things differently because you weren't inundated with so much coming in real time?
Yeah, I think so. And especially when you're doing safaris and stuff like that, I had no idea what this was going to be like. Shannon helped plan it. My sister-in-law is a travel agent, so she helped book everything. I met my brother and sister-in-law there, so it was the four of us. So we had some camaraderie and good things going. But there were times when you were I I could just remember this vividly at the Apartheid Museum, just standing there and really thinking about my place in the world and what I can do to not solve some of these problems that are going on in society, but be a positive force to help with things. And, just going to a place like that where people of color got so, oh God, it's overwhelming for me to even think about again, but just got, just here we are, we're all people. We all have the same guts on the inside, right? And it's because of skin that people were persecuted there. And this has happened all over the world. And I think about it. I think about our relationship, we're definitely like, you could tell you're white or I'm white, you're black, like this is how it is in the world. But we have a great relationship. We both bleed the same. Like we both have the same guts. And ah, so those kind of moments that these earth moving moments for me to like be standing outside of Nelson Mandela's cell and realizing the time that he had to put in there because of the color of his skin and because he wanted everybody to be free in that country. It was just unbelievable and overwhelming. And so it was moments like that I could reflect on, the credit union career, what I've done in my career and what I've tried to do, the whole people helping people philosophy and really moving things forward, being a partner with other community partners in our community to help better their organizations, to take care of my team, make sure they have the best benefits we can possibly do, that they can get bonuses based on performance or, a holiday bonus for everybody because we're doing well as an organization, that's going to help improve their lives. Those are the kind of things that I think I reflected on mostly. Not to mention, we're riding along in a Jeep and there are a pride of lions like 2 feet away that could just jump in the car any moment and, have a bite of one of us. And those kind of moments that you don't get that in the day to day, sitting in the CEO chair, working with your team, doing those kind of things. And so to be out in the world and see what's out there and what people have endured and how fortunate we are as Americans as a whole to have a place that is normally relatively safe, that we could work. This is a free country. You have your own business and you can schedule your own time. And, as hard as you want to work, that's how much money you're going to bring in. And I think it's the same with a lot of employers too. Like keep working hard, raise your hand, ask to take on more. Eventually the salary will come. But I think, just being out and being away from the environment that I'm in here into a whole different space gave me time to clear my head and look at those things and be grateful for what I have and what we have here as Americans. So,
Yeah, I think grateful is the key word. And listen, I get it. Not everyone has the opportunity to travel abroad specifically for extended periods. And even if it's just for a brief period, I'll tell you something's different in the way I show up when I experience different cultures, when not everyone speaks English, when not everyone's country has the same kind of foundation in history. There's a growth that happens that I observe in myself, especially just moments of going to the grocery store and trying to
yeah.
figure things out, even trying to talk to the person at the cash register. The differences I notice in my kids existing in a different culture. And by no means are we suggesting that you need to jump on a plane and cross an ocean to experience these types of things. However, these types of opportunities, doing different types of excursions, I think are available to us. And I got to give a quick shout out to your sister-in-law because it's fascinating. If you are looking to take a trip, of course, you can jump on AI nowadays and they'll plot out this itinerary for you, do this and that. But I dare say that in this age of AI, that travel agents are actually needed more than ever. You need that human connection. People have been there and done that. And so I'm glad that I'm actually seeing travel agents and people who plan trips actually are getting busier than ever right now because of that. And you'll be a little bit frustrated, I think, trying to plan a whole trip, not talking to humans. Would you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. And, she was really helpful in, picking a spot, first of all, and then lining up the trip. One of the things is we went with a company called Globus, and I was just expecting it to, we show up in the lobby of the hotel in the morning when they told us to, and there would be 25 other people that would get on a bus and go drive around. But no, we had this thing is called Globus Independent. And so this guy walks in and he's like, "Oh, Lindstrom's. Yes, yeah, that's us." And he's like, "Okay, I got the van right here." And I'm like, "Where's everybody else?" I'm like, "Oh no, it's just the four of you." So I was like, wow. And this trip actually was a lot more affordable than you would think it would be, because normally when you're on a big bus tour trip like that, you're waiting for 35 other people all the time. And we got waylaid at the Penguins down south in Cape Town, where we spent a little time there. It rained a little bit and we're supposed to have lunch. And so lunch wasn't necessarily, ready when we got there. So we had to wait a little while. This guy spent 2 or almost maybe 3 hours more time than what he expected to spend with us that day. And having that kind of experience, I think, was primarily because my sister-in-law is a travel agent. She was able to set this up, but I had no idea. I expected it to be this huge tour, and it actually was the whole entire time really just the four of us. We did share a Jeep a couple times with people, ironically, were both from Bologna, Italy, 2 different days, 2 separate couples that were there same time as we were. But for the most part, it was the four of us, like our table for dinner, all those kind of things. And so that was good too, being able to be with my brother. I don't know if I've mentioned it. He's a couple years younger than I am, but was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And so, I'm trying to do a lot of travel with him before he's not able to do that anymore. He's had the brain stimulation surgery done and is doing actually pretty well. But it's only a matter of time. And, before he's not able to do those kind of things. And so it was actually, that part of the trip too, being able to bond with my brother and sister-in-law and my wife on this kind of a thing. And I'm sure they had similar feelings of, just humanity and what it means.
Yeah, and I'm glad you were able, again, we're talking about international trips that you and I took, but by no means are we suggesting, again, you need to travel an ocean or get on a plane. There are amazing trips we can do, obviously, stateside, and things we can do to disconnect. And if you do have, I think we space out our vacation so much. Of course, we'll do 4 days here, 5 days there, depending upon how much total vacation you have or PTO. But I think there's something really special about extended time off, especially if it can border on 10 days or something like that. And I get that's not available for everyone. And the reason why I mention that is because I think most people, if you do that standard 5, 6 day time out of the office, and we don't even need to call it a vacation, this time out of the office, I forgot. I want to say the research, Jason, says it takes up to 6 days to fully disconnect from work and life as it was. And so I think people need that time, is because most times you take this trip, and when you finally are present and you're able to disconnect from your day to day, you got to get on a plane or get back in the car and get back right at it. Would you agree the length of time you had away allowed you, obviously, again, I know you're plugged in, you're going to be checking your email, all that kind of fun stuff. But did the length of that trip give you an opportunity to really exhale, if you will, and reset? I think what we're really talking about is resetting the nervous system.
Yeah, I think so. That whole part of it, I definitely reset. It took me a while though. And I think you mentioned, we were texting back and forth when I got back, that for every hour ahead you go, it's about a day time frame as far as getting through your jet lag. And like I said, I've traveled before and not really had jet lag problems, but this time I did. I was waking up every night at 1 a.m, wide awake, ready to go. And that takes a toll on you too, especially coming back. And so, yeah, I think it was I got back on a Wednesday, and I think it was finally the following Wednesday when I woke up at regular time and was like, oh man, I slept actually through the night. This is great. But yeah, and so it definitely, that time away did add to that. I think is just being able to disconnect some, and but also have that time difference. But then getting back into the swing of things. Yes, those short 3-day weekends or whatever, you're back in it on Tuesday or whatever, and just going. And those longer vacations, it does make it a little harder to get back in the swing of things for sure.
Yeah. I want to get practical for folks that are listening who are, maybe it's that executive or it's that employee that has a good amount of PTO. But let's rewind.
Yeah.
What would you say, Jason? Because my hunch is you probably have some people on your staff right now that have a good amount of PTO that they could take off. But for whatever reason, they don't want to take it off. Either they want to get that paycheck at some point from that, or just the fear of being out of office for an extended period. Maybe even there's a manager that doesn't encourage it. But what do you say to that man or woman that has a good amount of PTO, whether that's vacation or just standard paid days off that they're just sitting on. What would you say to encourage them to consider taking it?
I would just tell them, you've got to be able to disconnect at times and get that time away from the job. The work is going to be there whether you leave or not. And I think that's what a lot of people worry about is, oh man, the amount of work volume that I have. I think we've gotten in our culture that we're doing more with less. And so sometimes in some companies, somebody leaves the organization and they're like, okay, well, that's a body we don't have to replace. But guess what, Johnny, you're going to be taking on that job too. And for no more pay, right? That happens a lot in society here. And so, Johnny now is working and he's doing 2 jobs, and that workload is so heavy all the time. It's a good excuse as to why Johnny would need to, possibly take more PTO because the workload is so heavy. But I think there's a lot of that's going on in society, and at least at companies. Even with the advent of AI, I mean, we are seeing layoffs, around the world on that because of AI. But I do think that we've just had this culture for a while going that we do more with less, and you try to get as much done as you can in that 8-hour day. And sometimes it's more than 8 hours. It's a 10-hour day. It's a 12-hour day, those kind of things. And so what I would say to someone that has that PTO saved up is that, eventually, I think with us, it times out at a certain spot where you don't accrue it anymore from year to year. So you have to try to spend it. If you walked away from the organization, you're not going to get 1,500 hours of PTO on a paycheck. And so, I always would talk to somebody and say, hey, look, take that time, break away, plan for it, and just make sure that, that everything's covered in your work area, and that, that'll lighten the load when you come back because you've had some help. But prepare for that and let people know. But I do think it's one of those things that, you're given it for a reason. And I think we need to just, as leaders, we have to enforce that. And so my trip definitely was a good example of being able to unplug. But like you mentioned early on, it was 9 years, and taking that straight shot of PTO like that was a big one for me. But I think others can do that too, even if it's a local thing, like you said, 6 days away, a week away. I've got team members that are going on a cruise, and I think it's 7 or 10 days, and that's what they want to do. They want to get away and do that. And I totally think that it's necessary in the workplace to create a healthy work environment for sure.
Absolutely. And listen, I also know I'm not naive. There are some managers, some leaders out there that unfortunately discourage PTO, but how they show up. And they may not directly do it, but you can sometimes hear some comments or backhanded comments that reflect that. And I'll just say, I'm curious to get your point of view for that manager that may be, frankly, a little bit afraid. I think that's what it is. Fear that shows up if this key member of our team is out for an extended period, whether that's 2 days or 9 days, that everything's going to break and it's going to be hard and this and that. And some of those things may be true, but I think a manager has to think about things in the short term and then in the long term, specifically the long term. Yes, things may be a little bit challenging for a few days while that person is out. Again, they can plan ahead. Let's talk about that next, about planning ahead. But also, I think they got to think long term as well, because guess what? That man or woman who takes that PTO, they're going to come back a better person, rejuvenated, inspired. Maybe the tank's going to be full. They're able to reboot, reset, if you will, versus just constantly maybe feeling a little bit beat down and tired. So I say that man or woman that takes that PTO is going to come back more committed, more fueled up. You're going to get a better employee out of them. Would you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. Especially here in Maine, when we do have seasons, like I can look out the window right now and I'm looking at 2 to 3 feet of snow on the ground this time of year. And so it's great for somebody that can take their PTO and get down to, a warmer climate, and vice versa. In the summertime, we hire summer tellers, people that are home from college or whatever, to help bolster the PTO that we're giving out to people or allowing people to take. Because it is summer and it's beautiful here in Maine in summer. It's not 120 degrees like Arizona or something. And so you can get out and have a really nice hike or boat ride or whatever here in Maine. And so we typically try to promote that with our team as well. And we know that summertime is going to be one of those times. So we even go the extra mile to hire summer tillers to help with that backfill. But I do think that as a leader or as a manager of a particular area, if you aren't promoting that and you're taking it, to the extreme, and you're saying like, oh no, you don't want to take PTO, you're going to end up having so much work. I think to your point, you're spot on. I think people do come back rejuvenated. They do come back like more electrified. Hey, I had my fun. I did this, I did that, but now I'm back to work, and it's like, let's go. And I think that excitement of even coming back to work sometimes, yeah, it may be, oh God, my vacation's over. This is terrible. But, I've got some friends that are people that I know that are retired. For the first 6 months, they had their honeydew list to do. They had things to do and all that. They had plans to golf. They had all these things going on. They did all that in that 6 months. And then now they don't know what to do with themselves. And a lot of them might even come back to work part-time sometime because of that. So, I think PTO in some ways is one of those things that teaches you, hey, this is a way you can get away. You can detox from work, but also get rejuvenated and come back to work in a better state with knowing that you had that relaxation time or the time away from work that will allow you to even be a better employee. And I think, again, like on the management perspective, if I heard anybody at my organization was, downplaying and discouraging PTO, I'd be pretty upset with that, because I do think that we need to get away. And there's always those hard workers, those hardworking people that have amassed that 1,000 hours of PTO, and they just don't ever want to take PTO. They even say like, I'm going to be bored if I'm at home for a few days or doing whatever. And that's perfectly fine too, if they don't want to take it. But at the same time, it's like those folks, I think if they had a chance to unplug for a good week or 2 weeks and do something, even if it's something around their house, whether it's, reseeding their lawn or just going for a couple walks a day or something different than what they do, I think that would also open them up a little bit more to the workload when they got back.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be huge things.
Yeah.
I want to get practical. I'm curious for you, what should people be thinking about? Okay, you know what? Thanks, guys. You convinced me to take a few days off, maybe 9 days, maybe 2 days, maybe just a day. And you know what? I'm a good employee. I'm a good teammate. I want to make sure things don't go haywire and crazy for the team while I'm out. What would you suggest? Things that they should do prior to being out of the office? Any types of systems, a guidebook, standard operating procedures? Now, maybe all these things should. Maybe we realize something is wrong if one person takes a few days off and everything breaks. So that tells you something in itself right there. But what do you recommend? Any type of systems or checks and balances to be in place so that person and the manager can feel good about when they leave?
Yeah, for me, it was just really planning ahead. So I had to look at all the community things that I'm involved in a number of different boards. So had to look at the calendar ahead of time, notify those folks, hey, I'm not going to be here. Is that okay? What can you fill me in on stuff when we get back? Can you send me meeting minutes? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Have a fun time. But preparing others for your absence is, I think, the most important thing ever that you need to do when you're planning for PTO, no matter what level you're on. Let's say you're a frontline teller, and your job is that you normally have Wednesdays off because you work Saturday or something's, spot on all the time with your schedule. Talk to your teller supervisor, your manager, all of that to say, hey, look, I'm going to be out of the country or whatever. What can I do to help fill my time? Can I, ask around and see, is, I'll go back to the Johnny guy again, right? Is Johnny available to cover my shift on Wednesday? Try to help out the management staff, but prepare. And, what's interesting is like we used to leave out of office responses on emails. And now, at least at my level, I do that internally, but I don't do it externally because there are so many people that are out there trying to scam the credit union. And if they knew that the CEO was gone and my expected date is back, coming in on January 15th, and it's now the 31st of December, I could be opening up for more fraud. So again, it's that thought process of thinking about everything that I needed to do. My desk is clean. Everything's locked. Where's my laptop? Everything put away. For me, I had to call IT and make sure that my phone would work in South Africa, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. And fancy enough, when I was in Zimbabwe, I went to connect and I couldn't connect. And it's because where we were staying is right on the Zambezi River, and across the river is Zambia. Well, they ran their internet service and everything through Zambia. So I had to figure that out, or message my IT team, again, 7 hours ahead. So it was morning here or whatever. And, they released Zambia, and then I was able to connect. But, you think everything through, but you got to be prepared for those little things while you're on a trip that, it's really interesting. They connect across the river.
Yeah, 100%. And again, we're talking about international stuff.
Yeah.
There's some practical things we can do, and these are things that I've done here in Los Angeles where I live. So I think there are small scale options. Of course, you can just pay PTO and stay home for the day, stay home for the week, and get some things done around the home. Or you know what, lay up and watch a whole bunch of Hallmark movies while you eat popcorn. My wife and I have done staycations here in Southern California where we've done these together, but we've also done them independently where we'll go stay at a hotel or get an Airbnb to go work on some things, to go relax, to go plan or something like that. Of course, if you live somewhere where there's amazing museums and things to see and things that are within a drive, you can go visit those things, whether it's hiking or museums, art, all that. So we're not talking about, it doesn't have to be some massive undertaking. It can be something small as well. But I think the key when we say small or big, my hope is that in some shape or form, what you do rejuvenates you. Some trips aren't necessarily, when I come back, like Jason from international trips, the first few days back can be challenging. No one's going to feel sorry for me. And my hope is that you're actually doing something you want to do that is going to rejuvenate you. I think this is an important question because, again, people will take those 2 days of PTO off or a week off for vacation or maybe longer. Then you realize, how valuable you are to that team. And no matter how much planning and things you got done in advance, it's inevitable, Jason, that you're going to get a phone call. You're going to get a text message. You're going to get an email to your personal email address saying, hey, I know you're on vacation, I know you're on PTO, but just a few questions to help out. So my question to you is, what boundaries matter most while you're away should you adhere to? Now, and I want you to answer that, Jason, from not a CEO perspective, because I know at any point I know you need to respond if there's an emergency or important information. But imagine that manager, that coordinator, that director, who doesn't have the same amount of responsibility as you, or say a COO or SVP or something, or VP, but they're still, important part of the team. What type of boundaries should that man or woman have?
Yeah, I think ideally in a perfect world, you want to say, like, hey, I'm going to disconnect. I'm not going to be reachable, and, only contact me in an emergency. It's all great to say at all levels, right? But I do think that the planning of your PTO time, whether it is you're just going to disconnect and be at home for 2 or 3 days, like you said, I think you need to have that plan and have that conversation with your senior person above you to say, like, I really want to disconnect. So be sure. Go as far as like, hey, if I really want to disconnect, IT, can you turn me off for these days? That's a big one. And IT is happy to oblige. They can easily block your login so that you can't get into things. And so, I just think there's a number of things, but you set those boundaries, right? For me, like you said, hey, you're a CEO. I know you've got emergencies. My boundaries, I'm always available. I'm going to be available 24/7, 365. Maybe not right away when you call. So when I'm out on the safari, let's say, or I'm with Shannon, my wife, and we're doing something, I wait until there is downtime to like catch up on email. And there were a couple times on this trip where it was like 67 emails in my inbox. But it was nighttime and we're just sitting around doing nothing. So then I could scroll through and answer and get to those that, if there were any that were important. And so I think it's like having just those boundaries you set for yourself. Like, I was not going to let my phone disturb me while I was looking at lions and zebras and giraffes out on the safari. We got scared to death a couple times by elephants, and it was like, phone was the last thing on my mind. There's more of personal safety. Are we going to be okay? And this elephant's not going to charge us any further and knock the Jeep over. But I think there's those kind of moments right here in America that, you go home and, your dog is sick or something like that, that you have to like pay attention and you have to set that boundary. Or, you want to spend time with your spouse and your kids and block out the work side of it. And I know we have people at my office that, when they're off work, they shut down. They're not on their phone for work stuff. And, that's perfectly fine. I don't set that expectation for everyone, but I think people that really care about the organization and have a higher level position, maybe manage a lot of people or a branch network or whatever, they're dialed in, probably as much as I am. And again, like the work gets away from you if you're not constantly staying on top of it. And so I think it's different for everybody, but I do think that those boundaries you can set ahead of time when you know you're going to be gone for a certain amount of time, and you can tell the person above you or IT like, hey, I do want to fully disconnect and I don't want to be bothered for anything. And I think 9 times out of 10, your manager and the person above you is going to say, right on, that's great, go for it. And like you said, there'll be those others that 1 time out of 10 will be like, well, I'm going to need to get a hold of you. I need to know where the X file is or whatever it might be. And, that happens too. So just a minute,
Yeah. This is another conversation for another day, but I think even sometimes being too available, it enables people. They don't they don't find that autonomy to figure things out on their own. It's kind of I'm not comparing being a manager to being a parent by no means, but sometimes it's fun to see my kids struggle when they need something because I want to see if they're going to figure it out right before I come in and solve it for them. Then my last question for you, and this is for those leaders out there. I'm trying to think about the best way to build a culture, to build an environment, Jason, where people show up every single day, where they can take time off without fear. Again, not taking advantage of anything, but legitimate time they have, how to take it off without fear. And in my brain, I'm thinking of like a PTO list, a PTO document employees come up with, and hey, amazing things you can do on a day off within an hour of where we work, or people share what they did on their PTO, whether it was I went to the library and got out 3 books I wanted to read, or I went to this play, or I traveled here, like something where it's celebrated. So I think that if there's a way to celebrate, or I rested, right? I didn't do anything. For you, how can we build a culture where people take time off without fear?
well, I do think it starts with, building a culture that does take care of employees with the benefits, being sure that there's a generous PTO policy. I don't have 100% confidence that everybody in my organization feels like they can take PTO without fear. I don't think you can ever achieve 100% success in that because people have their own feelings about it. There might be a manager, there might be a branch that's short staffed and they have been for a long time, just in this kind of hiring market, trying to find the right people. So I don't say that we're perfect. We can be as close to that as we think we are, but I know that there's probably some of that does go on, that someone's fearful of taking the time off just because maybe they don't want to put their coworker out, knowing that, hey, I'm on the teller line and now we have 3 tellers and that's going to leave us with 2 because there's nobody else, but I really want to take this time. That happens. I just think that it's something that we want to build from the inside, that everybody from the senior team all the way down does take PTO, does get away at times, and that we kind of show the rest of the team that it's fine and it's okay to do that. You're given liberal PTO for it. And I do know that, the PTO policy, I know some companies across America, it's not all just PTO because PTO includes any sick time you have. So you have people that kind of hoard their PTO because they're worried that they'll get sick or somebody in their family will get sick and they need to use it for that, to take care of a loved one or something like that, where it's not all just vacation and fun. And, I'm of that mindset too. Like, I do enough active mountain biking and stuff like that there might be a time I go over the bars or something and I break something and I need to be at home on PTO. And that's not the vacation PTO type. It's the, healing PTO type. And so I do think it just starts with a culture of taking care of the employees and allowing them to know that, hey, we stand behind you. We try to work with you. But again, it also goes two ways, right? You need to be, as an employee, I believe, you need to be proactive and, not just all of a sudden come up and be like, hey, I'm going to take 3 days off next week. Is that okay? And expect that you're going to get it because somebody else may already have those 3 days off and you're now strapping the team with it. So it's all about planning and, planning when you leave, planning your vacation ahead of time. I have a couple employees that send me at the beginning of the year all of their vacation time for the year. They book it all because they're planners and they line it all out. I don't really have a way to say no that you can't take PTO in August when you hit me up in January, right? So I think there's a lot that is said about that. And it's really just planning for yourself. And again, your self-worth and your value as a human and as a worker in an organization, an employee, a team member, whatever you want to call it. You have a responsibility as well to be sure that you're planning for these things and that, yeah, something could come up. You could be ill and that happens, right? But planning it and, making sure, checking with the manager and say, is anybody off this week? Because I'm thinking about planning a cruise. No one's off. Well, can I tentatively have that so I can book it and get the right price and I'll come back to you? Those are the kind of things that really make that culture fly, right? And make it successful all the way around because you've got that interaction. And we've talked about this before, being transparent and honest and having conversations with leaders really makes it work.
Makes all the difference in the world. And of course, if you have a manager or a leader or a CEO like you, who's an example of doing this, encourages it, makes things that much easier. And of course, like you said, be prepared, plan, be responsible, and I think things will go fine. Well, Jason, I think this was another fantastic episode of Pilot to Co-Pilot. We thank all of you for listening and for joining us. And hey, if you've already taken some PTO or you're going to take some PTO, we encourage it. Of course, do it responsibly. And hey, we're easy to find on the internet. Let us know what you do with that PTO. Maybe we'll share your ideas with some of our viewers. So until next time, Jason and I will see you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Antonio. We'll see you guys later.